Welcome to Friendeavor, the podcast, the weekly podcast where we explore the highs and lows of friendship with your hosts, Danielle and Kayla.
As we journey through life, our friendships often evolve and change, ebb and flow, and sometimes even come to an end. Danielle and I are lifelong advocates for the power of friendship, and we are here to guide all of us through the many challenges and joys that come with building and maintaining strong, meaningful connections with those around us.
Join us each week as we deep dive into the intricacies of friendship, from navigating conflicts to fostering new relationships and everything in between. With insightful interviews, personal anecdotes, and expert advice, Friendeavor is the perfect podcast for anyone looking to strengthen their bonds with the people they love.
So, whether you are on the go, taking care of chores, or just settling in, get ready to explore the world of friendship on Friendeavor, the podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Friendeavor. I'm your host, Danielle.
And I'm Kayla. Welcome back, guys.
And we are so thrilled that you decided to stop by and hang out with us this week. We are tagging in on last week's episode, which was knowing when it was time to end a friendship or when it was time to let go. And if you've not heard that episode, please stop this one and go listen to that first, because there's a lot of key things that we went over about navigating that end, and we're just tagging on to that. This is kind of like a part 2 of that one, but we're titling it Coping with the End of a Friendship. There's going to be ups and downs. It's going to hurt. It's going to be a lot. So
even if it was the right thing, you're still going to grieve it.
Yeah, it's a loss.
Yeah.
So we just have a few things that you can keep in your back pocket for, God forbid, if that were to ever happen to you. But it's going to be challenging. It's going to be challenging. And I want to make sure that we're clear on that at first. It's not going to be like, whew, you know.
Yeah. And this is not like a checklist of, okay, you do all these things and then you're good. You know? This is just some tips to help with that grieving process. You
might see some interweaving of the, 5 stages of grief, because again, it is a grieving process. But actually, we're going to kick it off with that first one. Allow yourself to grieve. Just like the end of any relationship, whether it's a death of a friend or family member, or a divorce, or any sort of ending of a relationship. It's normal to experience feelings of sadness, grief, loss when a friendship comes to the end, especially when it's been a years-long relationship. Give yourself permission to feel those emotions and recognize that it's okay to mourn for a spell.
Because what's going to happen if you don't feel those emotions, then you're going to bottle it up, and then at some point they're just going to come flowing over.
And hopefully, if you can process them in a healthy way, they won't come exploding out of you in a future relationship, which could cause damage to a relationship that may have started already or may have has not even seen the light of day yet. But you don't want to set yourself up for failure just because you didn't process the last relationship.
Right.
The next thing we want to go over is reflect. Reflect on the relationship. I have said so many times on this podcast, Kayla, that I learn so much more about what I don't want to be from people than what I do.
Yeah.
And when you reflect on a relationship, the end of a relationship, take some time to figure out why it ended. Some people call this a postmortem, which is the operation of on a corpse, on a dead body, to see why it died.
Yeah.
Some causes of death are very obvious. Some of them are, like, oh, we had to see they had a heart attack or whatever. But like, kind of do a postmortem on your relationship. Okay, well, the cracks started to form here. We didn't handle this well. And then you'll know for the future, okay, I can't allow this to get in the way of this, whatever it is that you discover. And it's not going to be the same. Well, hopefully it's not the same for every relationship, because if that is, then there's going to be a pattern. And typically patterns reflect on the person that is in every scenario.
Yeah.
So if you're the problem, then you got to recognize that so that you don't carry that over again into the next relationship.
Right. It's like figuring out, 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb,
Yeah, Thomas Edison.
Yeah. You can, not, I don't want to say go through friendships, because we don't encourage that, just like going through friendships.
You can add them. You can add them all the live long day.
Right.
But we would not recommend just ending them or scooting on from one because another one's more attractive.
Right. But there are things that you learn, and you don't have to feel like you're a failure or that you failed at something. Because you didn't fail.
Right.
You know, the relationship might have failed because it just wasn't good for you or wasn't good for them, and it just wasn't a good friendship. But you didn't fail.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's good to go back and reflect on what was good about the friendship and what wasn't so good.
Positive and negatives.
Yeah.
Those positives are also going to help you be able to, you'll be able to expound on those. Like, you know, oh, we did really well when we were, when we vacationed together. Like, our problem was when we were apart from each other at home because we didn't put in as much effort into it. You know, I'm just throwing out, you know, scenarios here, but, and then you'll think, okay, well, maybe if it comes time to revive that friendship again, because I wouldn't say that every friendship that you end will be ended forever.
Right.
That's one thing that we didn't cover a lot last week, is that sometimes, well, we did talk about seasons, but how the season might not be permanent. And that person could grow up, you could grow up, you could see the differences in your lifestyle.
Right.
And then if you do end up being able to revive that friendship, you'll know, hey, we did really well when we vacationed together. Or again, whatever the positive is in your relationship. But yeah, looking back on the negatives and the positives are only going to help you process what you have gone through and process what you have learned through the whole situation. You typically have other friends. It's usually not like we said you just have one friend and then that friendship dies and then you move on to that. So it's like a river, you know, like different things flow into it and flow out of it. So if you find yourself in a situation where one of your streams has disconnected from the river, reach out to your other friends for support.
And that doesn't always have to take the form of gossip.
No,
you know,
it should never take the form of gossip.
Yeah.
It's easy to do.
Right.
We're not saying that.
And it can be easy to slip into that.
Yeah.
But, you know, present it like, hey, I need help and I need some feedback.
Yeah.
You know,
don't hesitate to lean on other friends, the family members, those mentors that we talked about, like those older friends, because that's the benefit of having older friends, is they have that perspective. And talking to someone you trust can just provide comfort and validation, but also that so needed perspective.
Yes.
Perspective.
And hopefully if they are a good friend, they will give you their honest perspective.
Yeah.
You know.
And even if it's not like goes against, maybe you have the correct perspective, it could also be just a wider perspective on it. Yeah. It might not be like, oh no, you're wrong about that, so therefore let me tell you exactly why you're wrong. It could be like, yeah, but you know, let's twist the kaleidoscope a little bit and see, what were they feeling? Are they grieving too? You know. And this is such a kind of an abstract, this episode and the last episode are kind of abstract, because again, these are not something that you wake up every day and you're like, oh, gotta process another end of the relationship, you know, like this is years in the making to find yourself in this kind of situation. And the breakup, if you will, the end of the friendship is also not going to just be like you wake up one day and, all right, this is over, so therefore I got to get a new friend tomorrow.
Right.
Have some perspective on this whole situation, the whole like concept, and realize that it's okay to reach out to other people, and it might take you 6 months before you even realize that the relationship is like over or whatever. But you should always have those people in your life that you feel comfortable with to be able to help you through difficult seasons.
Right.
All right, number 4, practice self-care. Now, this phrase is used and abused to the extreme, but the actual base root use of it is extremely needed in our society. You have to give time for yourself. You have to have balance. You have to be able to care for yourself. The problem is in our society, and I feel like I've gotten on this soapbox before, but the emphasis on self-care is to the point of neglecting other things.
Right. Or other people.
The point of self-care is to not neglect yourself.
Right.
So as long as you got a healthy balance in all this, self-care is going to be beneficial to help you nurture your physical and emotional and mental well-being back to what it should be.
Right.
And there's a lot of, you know, tools that you can use for that, exercise and prayer and pursuing hobbies and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But self-care should be a part of your grieving process.
And, you know, spending time alone will get you introspecting and really, like, sometimes I can tend to overthink when I'm alone and I'm doing a self-care activity, like, I don't know, getting a pedicure. So you're sitting there for 30 minutes by yourself, not talking to anyone else. You're just in your head.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can overthink, but sometimes if you can practice not overthinking, then it's a good tool to just get you thinking, introspecting,
it's like
reflecting.
Being grounded, you know, like I feel that way during a massage. It's just like I'm relaxed. If I'm not falling asleep, then I'm relaxed and I'm just like, you know, able to
Yes.
I'm trying to push the responsibility thoughts aside and really get into my own head and just think and process things that I want to, that typically get shoved on the back burner.
Yes.
So those are the types of self-care, not the ones of like, okay, I am going to neglect my job and my ministries because I need to take care of me. I need to, no. Balance. And we will preach that. We preached it from the day that we started this podcast until the day that we end it. It is going to be all about balance.
Yes.
So when you use the elements of self-care, do them in a healthy manner that you're not neglecting other things in your life in the process.
Right.
When you are ending a friendship or a friendship has come to an end, that person, okay, so let's think back to when we were talking about some of the tips, or maybe not tips, but like the signs of when it's time to let go. One of them that we talked about was toxic behavior. And sometimes when you disengage from someone with the toxic behavior, they don't even recognize that you're trying to disengage from them and that you're just separating yourself. Because again, not every friendship is going to just have a sit down meeting and be like, you know what, it's been nice knowing you, but I'm done. You know, a friendship is not quite the same way as any other relationship in that manner. And so if you are just separating yourself from a toxic behaviored person, you need to be prepared to set boundaries. And that's number 5 is to set boundaries. If necessary, if this relationship requires it, establish boundaries to protect yourself.
Right. Yeah. So that doesn't have to look like ghosting them, you know, unless it's the extreme case where like that's necessary.
Yeah.
But yeah, oftentimes that person, like you said, doesn't even know that the relationship is ended if you've made that decision on your own. So, you know, next time they do a toxic thing, like ask for something, for a favor that's so bizarre, you know, that would be, that would be a time to, you know, set a boundary.
Because you're a boundary, think of what a boundary is, like a fence, like an actual physical boundary. It's to prevent things from going out, but it's also to prevent things from coming in. Like a pasture in a field is typically not to prevent the cows from like getting away. Like the cows are fine in the pasture. They have everything they need. But it's to prevent predators from coming in. So a boundary, I think sometimes we get so ethereal in our thought about boundaries that we can forget that what it literally is just protecting what's inside.
Yeah.
So if your spiritual self is on the line and potentially going to get impacted by the toxicity of someone else, you best set that boundary, and you best set it hard. And if it's a fence, you know, build it high, build the wall, because there's nothing more important than your spiritual safety, right? Yeah. If your boundary's just like, oh, well, they hurt my feelings. Okay, well, you know, process that in your own way, but also grow up. So sticks and stones, people. I mean, come on. So if it comes to the point of sticks and stones may break your bones, grow up. Or sticks and stones may break my bones, but words never hurt me, or whatever. But just the point is, if you're physically in danger, obviously remove yourself from that person. If you are spiritually in danger, remove yourself from that person. But set the healthy boundaries so that you know that you can balance like being cordial with that person, but not getting yourself emotionally attached to them.
Yep.
This next one is going to sound kind of controversial to what we just said about the self-care, but I have a point in adding this to the list. Yeah. Number 6, focus on yourself. Okay, when you hear that, again, we go back to the, it's just about me time. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, there are times that you need to be alone and shut off the cares of the world. But again, it's with balance.
Yeah.
When I say focus on yourself, I mean use this time as an opportunity to grow yourself.
Yeah, this one's more like sticking a mirror in your face.
Exactly.
Like, hey, don't look at the speck in his eye when you have a log in yours.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
That's more what we're talking about.
Yeah, this
here.
focus on yourself is not about the self-care. It's not about the neglect. It's about, hey, what did I do wrong in this relationship? Yeah. I mean, it takes two to tango, and if one person lets go, and then it's it's like, oh, I don't know, but what did you do to prevent the downfall of this or to cause the downfall of this? It's really easy to just be like, oh yeah, they're so toxic and they just do, their terrible behavior and they talk about me and they, they stand me up all the time and they just treat me really bad. Okay, what did you do for them?
Yeah.
What are the ways that you went above and beyond to show the love that they need to prevent them from gossiping or whatever? You are not 100% at fault for the end of that friendship, but the point we're making is that they aren't either.
Yeah.
That was a great reference about the speck in the log, because put a mirror in front of yourself. Focus on yourself during this brief season, not this long drawn out friendship ended. Not this super long season. Yes. This short season of transition. And yeah, look at yourself and say, oh wow, okay, I can definitely work on that.
Yes. And then once you've, had time to focus on yourself and recognize your wrongdoings, then you need to practice forgiveness. And that is a commandment, it's not a suggestion. So it's going to be challenging at times. Actually, most of the time when you have to forgive, they've hurt you really bad.
It's not pleasant.
It's not pleasant to forgive. But it really is more about you than it is about them. Yeah. Forgiveness is really more about, it's more about the way it's going to make you feel. And, it's your duty as a Christian to forgive. So,
I'm going to tag in about the listener question we had a few weeks ago, how, she separated herself from the relationship and it ended. I hope that she forgave them, but in her forgiveness, she didn't have to call him up and be like, I forgive you.
Yeah.
Everything you said to me was so terrible. I forgive you. No, because that would just cause more drama. Yeah. You can cause a separation peacefully without extra drama, because there's already going to be some drama at the end of our friendship. But because you've chosen to forgive someone doesn't mean that you have to go and reconcile your differences.
Right. Yeah.
Don't make it dramatic.
Right.
The forgiveness, like you said, is for you way more than it is for them. If they come seeking your forgiveness because they have a growth and they realize what they needed to become, well then you can sit down and hash it out and forgive them publicly, or as publicly as you're going to get in a private conversation. But definitely forgiveness.
Well, and if you didn't have a big massive fallout, but you recognize their toxic behavior and you want to forgive them, it can be extremely awkward if you didn't have a massive fallout to be like, hey, I forgive you. And they're like, what?
Like, what did I do to you?
Yeah, right.
Who are you to forgive me? I didn't do anything to you.
Right. So forgiveness, just, use common sense. And use your brain. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're reconciling with a person right away or that you're ever going to reconcile with them. Forgiveness does not equal trust. It does not equal we're going back in full force. Forgiveness is simply, I forgive you.
I love what Pastor said last night in his sermon. He said that he referenced the scripture, the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And the kill thing, we often think of just, taking someone out and, out of life, trying to take them, end their life. But it also means kill things that can never be brought back to life, or at least fully back, trust. I was like, oof, that's so good, because you can try to rebuild trust, but there will always be a thing. There will always be, because it happened before. So, whatever it may be, they broke my trust before.
Yeah.
They went behind my back before. Like, so just because you are forgiving them does not mean that you have to it doesn't mean you're automatically going to forget what has happened.
Yeah.
To cause the end of the friendship.
Right. Yeah. We have a hard time forgetting.
Yeah. If you do end up having like a healthy transition out of that friendship, it is possible to seek closure.
Yeah. Some cases.
Not every case.
Yeah.
This is, again, if you happen to be able to reconcile with them. It could be helpful. And again, every situation is different. Not all of these things are going to fit for every situation. But it could be helpful to get closure, those respectful, honest conversations about the end of the friendship. And maybe sometimes these won't happen, ironically, until the friendship starts back up again.
Mm-hmm.
Until that season of it being not being friends for a while.
That's so true. Yeah.
At the next it's so weird to say the next season, but like, you know, if it does come, you know, full circle and you're back to being friends, sometimes this quote unquote closure won't happen until you're opening again.
Until the opening.
Until the opening again. So but it'll provide clarity, sense of, you know, recognition of what can I do better for both people or the friend group or whatever it ends up being.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's actually easier that way.
Yeah.
Because you've both had time to think about it, pray about it, and kind of it's become smaller at that point.
Yeah.
And you can laugh it off even. Like, I mean, you still need to talk about it, but yeah, when you guys do start talking again, it's like, hey, remember what was that all about?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I can't remember which episode it was. Maybe it was Trust. I can't remember. But we were talking about how there are some things that people tell you in confidence, but they don't tell you that it's in confidence. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then you like bring it up later as in like a jokey, but you don't realize it's a pain point for them or something. First of all, there's nothing more awkward than that. And second of all, if your new season of friendship opens, you can't just be like, okay, cards on the table. We get to just joke about what caused the end of our friendship. It's not like free game. Yeah. So that's just something to be mindful of. If it does come to the point where it's over and, you know, you are grieving, just give yourself some time.
Yeah.
Give yourself some time to heal. Be patient. If you don't allow your other friendships to suffer because you just rushed on with life thinking, oh yeah, you know, well, they're dead to me.
Yeah, right.
That's not how that works. So heal at your own pace, but don't get lost in the victim mentality. I've had so many people in my life that I've witnessed get absolutely drowned in the ocean of victimhood. I can think of 3 people off the top of my head right now, and probably 150 more if I gave it 2 minutes to think about it, of people who just like, they did me so wrong. And that's why I am the way that I am. It's not my fault. It's their fault. It's not my decisions that caused me to be the way I am. It's those people who caused me to be the way I am.
Yep.
So you take too long to heal, you know, and then you get just like, oh, well, they did this to me. Me.
Yeah.
And we could go into a whole hour-and-a-half discussion about church hurt and how that's abused these days.
Yep.
But, I mean, I just think of someone right now who blamed everything on certain leaders in their life that just, you know, did not handle them in the best way. Everyone can see that things were not handled appropriately. But instead of just taking comfort in the fact of knowing that everyone knows that they were done wrong, they had to wallow in it and point back and say, like, see, well, that's why I'm the way I am, is because what they did to me. Grow up.
Yeah.
Grow up.
Yeah.
Or grow out. Like, grow on. Like, grow forward. If you don't want to, like, you know, become a, you know, just if you've already think that you're acting your age, become better.
Yep.
Become a better leader than what you were treated as. Do something more. Invest in other people. Prove that you are not a product of your environment. How many people have grown up in broken homes and have gone on to become people who pour into others and prevent families from falling apart?
Right. Yep.
You can be more. You can heal, and you can grow up, and you can grow on, and you could be more successful than the people who hurt you ever could dream of being.
Yep.
But it's up to you. And if you're going to get lost in that victim mentality, well, I mean, you're just doing it to yourself.
Yep.
The last of these tips is just, this is kind of goes without saying, but I think I guess it doesn't go without saying because it gets lost.
Yeah.
But focus on the positive relationships in your life.
Yeah.
Is this a friend that your relationship has ended, but it's only one person in a larger friend group?
Right.
You guys can mourn the loss of that person out of your friend group, but also rejoice in the fact that you still have each other.
Right. And you can spend the time that you were spending with that toxic friend or whatever the problem was, you know, spend that time on your good friends, and you realize, oh, wow, I really do have good friends.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. This is, in your relationships can be healthier and grow to more than you ever thought they could be. I think of this book series I read one time where it was this friend group, and again, this is fiction, but it still is relevant. This friend group, a new girl moved to their town, and she was trying to become with a friend group, and then it ended up causing some conflict, and the other ones got closer together, and they just realized how much happier they were and how much stronger they were, even in the midst of turmoil, because they were just so happy that they had each other, you know? And it's just like, sometimes it takes an unpleasant situation for you to realize what you have.
Yeah.
I mean, Abby and Lydia, we joked that I forced them to be friends with me, but I think I talked about this on the YouTube channel, but I don't think on the podcast. So the way that we first hung out was we went to a corn maze with them in the fall. And we actually Kara and I had that friend date scheduled with another set of sisters. And they canceled the day before. And so my mom was like, well, what about Abby and Lydia Babineau? And we're like, I mean, okay, it just seems awkward to ask them because we've only hung out with them like one time or two times, you know? And so we texted them and they were down, and we went, and that was what we call our friendiversary.
Oh.
And it was in the situation where these other two girls canceled, and those two girls are not even in our lives anymore.
Wow.
So, I mean, providence or whatever you want to call it, a mother's intuition.
Right.
We had an end of a friendship that it wasn't like, you know, that night we're like, okay, they're dead to us because they couldn't come to the corn maze.
No.
But life moved on, the years moved on, and we realized I've got the best friends that anyone could ever have. And it was kind of like on a fluke, if you will.
And I'd heard that story, but I did not know that your mom was the one who suggested it. That's
She was.
So sweet.
Yeah.
Aww.
So we focused on the positive relationships, and we're so much the more better for it.
Yes.
And we don't like have any animosity toward those other girls, but they're just not in our lives, you know. They're like acquaintance level at this point. So focus on those healthy, positive relationships.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be a primary coping mechanism when you know it's time to let go.
And focus on growing those, you know.
What can you do today to make you stronger and your friendship stronger in the future?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, wow, I have been dwelling in that victim mentality. Do something about it now.
Mm-hmm.
Do something about it right now. Start right now. Start journaling. Start a devotional. Start praying an extra 30 minutes a day. Whatever you need to do to push out of that and become more. Sign up for a certificate program. Anything to prove to yourself and to your real or imagined foes that you can be better than what they expected of you.
Yes.
Because I don't have 2 years to rant about imagined foes, but sometimes you also build up enemies in your own mind that people don't even care. Like these people that you think are your enemies, they don't even have any sort of inkling of you at all.
Yeah.
And so you are you're letting them live rent free in your own mind instead of just using that space.
That.
We should. We'll add that to season 2.
Yeah.
Speaking of season 2, we are wrapping up season 1 here in just a few short weeks. Crazy. And I want to say thank you for sticking around with us this season. And if you have ideas or questions or comments or anything you want to hear, you can email us at friendeavorpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll see if that makes an appearance in season 2, which will be launching in September.
Yes, we're so excited.
yeah, we're gonna take the summer off because I'm going to Brazil.
Yeah, I know. So jealous.
I'm so excited, and Lydia's going with us, so
Yes.
that I'm stoked about too.
So exciting.
But Friendeavor will be doing a session in Brazil for the first time outside of our local area. Is not in the United States. It is in Brazil. So I am thrilled. So we'll have some content about that coming up here in the next month or so. And yeah, we're really excited. But thank you so much for stopping by this week. We hope you have a fantastic rest of your day or week or whenever you're listening to this. And we'll see you next time on Friendeavor.
See you next week.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Friendeavor the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed today's content, leave a review and share with a friend. You can find the show notes on our website, www.friendeavor.net, and in the description of this episode.
Friendship is a journey. It's an endeavor. We'll see you next time on Friendeavor.